The golden afternoon sun cast long shadows across the sidewalks of downtown San Francisco as Stephen Curry walked hand in hand with his 5-year-old son, Canon. Aisha had suggested they take a family stroll while she finished preparations for dinner with their daughters, Riley and Ryan. It was one of those rare, peaceful moments in Stephen's hectic schedule. No practice, no games, no media obligations. Just a father and son enjoying the simple pleasure of exploring their city together. Canon's small hand gripped Stephen's fingers tightly as they made their way down Market Street. The little boy's eyes were wide with wonder, taking in the bustling energy of the city. Street musicians played jazz melodies on corners, the aroma of fresh sourdough bread wafted from nearby bakeries, and the iconic cable cars clanged their bells in the distance. For Canon, every sight and sound was an adventure. "Daddy, look at that big building!" Canon pointed excitedly at the towering skyscrapers that seemed to pierce the clouds above them. Stephen smiled, remembering his own childhood wonder at the world around him. These moments reminded him why family was his true priority, even beyond basketball. As they continued walking, Stephen noticed the familiar sights of urban life that had become background noise to him over the years. Business people in sharp suits hurried past, checking their phones. Tourists snapped photos of the city's landmarks. Street vendors called out their offerings to passers-by. But for Canon, everything was new and fascinating. The father and son paused at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. Stephen looked down at Canon, who was studying the patterns in the concrete sidewalk with intense concentration. There was something pure about the way children observed the world, without judgment, without the filters that adults developed over time. Stephen treasured these moments of innocence, knowing they were precious and fleeting. "Can we get ice cream, Daddy?" Canon asked, his voice full of hope, as he spotted a vendor across the street. "After dinner," Stephen replied with a gentle smile. "Mom's making your favorite tonight." Canon accepted this answer with the easy satisfaction of a child who trusted his parents completely. The light changed, and they crossed the street, continuing their leisurely exploration of the neighborhood that Stephen had called home for years, but which Canon was still discovering with fresh eyes. As they turned onto a quieter side street, the atmosphere shifted slightly. The bustling energy of the main thoroughfare gave way to a more subdued urban landscape. Old brick buildings lined the street, their fire escapes creating intricate shadows on the walls. It was here, in this moment of relative quiet, that Canon's attention was drawn to something that would change the trajectory of their simple afternoon walk. Huddled against the side of a weathered building, partially hidden by a shopping cart filled with belongings, was a man wrapped in a tattered blanket. His weathered face was barely visible beneath a knit cap, and his eyes were closed, as if he were trying to escape into sleep, despite the harsh concrete beneath him. A small cardboard sign leaned against his cart, but Canon couldn't read the words written on it. Canon's steps slowed, then stopped completely. His grip on Stephen's hand tightened, as he stared with the unfiltered curiosity that only children possess. Stephen felt the change in his son's pace and looked down to see what had captured the boy's attention. When he followed Canon's gaze, Stephen's heart began to race slightly. He had passed countless homeless individuals throughout his years in the city, but seeing them through his child's eyes suddenly made everything feel different. "Daddy?" Canon's voice was soft, almost whispered, as if he instinctively understood that this moment required gentleness. "Why is that man sleeping outside?" The question hung in the air between them like a delicate thread. Stephen felt his throat tighten unexpectedly. He had always known this conversation would come eventually, the moment when his children would begin to see and question the harder realities of the world around them. But hearing it now, standing on this quiet street with his innocent 5-year-old son, the weight of the question felt overwhelming. Stephen knelt down to Canon's eye level, his knees touching the cold sidewalk. He could see the genuine confusion and concern in his son's dark eyes, the same eyes that lit up with joy when Stephen made a three-pointer, the same eyes that sparkled with laughter during their bedtime stories. But now those eyes held something different, the first glimpse of awareness that the world wasn't always fair or kind. "Well, buddy," Stephen began, his voice catching slightly as he searched for words that could explain something so complex to someone so young. Sometimes people don't have homes to go to. Canon's brow furrowed as he processed this information. In his world, home was a constant, a warm house filled with love, laughter, and security. The concept that someone might not have that fundamental safety was clearly difficult for him to grasp. "But why doesn't he have a home?" Canon pressed, his innocent persistence cutting straight to the heart of issues that entire governments struggled to address. Stephen felt his eyes beginning to well up as he looked at his son's earnest face. The simplicity of Canon's question revealed the complexity of a problem that had no easy answers. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that life isn't always fair? How do you introduce the concept of homelessness, poverty, and societal failure to someone whose biggest worry should be whether he'll get ice cream after dinner? "Sometimes, buddy," Stephen continued, his voice growing softer as he struggled to maintain his composure, "people have really hard times. Maybe they lost their jobs, or they got sick and couldn't pay for their house anymore. Maybe they don't have family to help them, or they've had some really tough things happen in their lives." Canon nodded slowly, his young mind working to understand concepts that were far beyond his years. Stephen could see the wheels turning in his son's head, trying to piece together how someone could end up without the basic security that Canon had always taken for granted. "Is he cold?" Canon asked, glancing back at the man who remained motionless against the building. The question hit Stephen like a physical blow. The innocent concern in his son's voice, the immediate empathy for a stranger's discomfort, revealed the pure heart that Stephen and Aisha had worked so hard to nurture. But it also highlighted the harsh reality that yes, this man was probably cold, probably hungry, probably lonely and afraid. "I think he might be," Stephen admitted, a single tear escaping down his cheek before he could stop it. Canon noticed immediately, his small hand reaching up to touch his father's face. "Daddy, why are you crying?" Stephen took a deep breath, trying to compose himself, but the emotion was too strong. Here was his son, this beautiful, innocent child, showing more compassion in a single moment than many adults displayed in their entire lives. And here he was, a man blessed with incredible success and resources, feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of suffering that existed just blocks from his comfortable home. "I'm crying because it makes me sad that some people don't have what we have," Stephen explained, his voice thick with emotion. "And I'm also crying because I'm proud of you for caring about someone you don't even know." Canon looked back at the homeless man, then up at his father. "Can we help him?" The question was so simple, so pure, so quintessentially childlike in its assumption that problems existed to be solved. Stephen felt his heart break and swell simultaneously. His son had just taught him something profound about the power of compassion and the importance of not becoming numb to others' suffering. Stephen stood up slowly, taking Canon's hand again, but he didn't immediately lead them away. Instead, he reached into his wallet and pulled out some bills. "You're right, Canon. We should help when we can." Together they approached the man carefully. Stephen cleared his throat gently, and the man's eyes opened, revealing a mixture of wariness and exhaustion. "Excuse me, sir," Stephen said softly. "My son and I wanted to offer you this and to ask if there's anything else we can do to help." The man's weathered face showed surprise, then a deep gratitude that seemed to come from somewhere beyond words. "Thank you," he whispered, accepting the money with hands that trembled slightly. "God bless you and your boy." As they walked away, Canon was unusually quiet, processing everything he had witnessed. Stephen could see his son's worldview expanding in real time, incorporating new realities that were both painful and important. "Daddy," Canon said finally, "can we come back and check on him tomorrow?" Stephen felt fresh tears threaten to spill over. In that moment he realized that his 5-year-old son had just taught him something invaluable about what it meant to be human. Canon hadn't just asked why people sleep on the streets. He had shown Stephen that the question itself was less important than what you did after asking it. "Yes, buddy," Stephen replied, squeezing his son's hand. "We can come back tomorrow." As they continued their walk home, Stephen thought about the conversation he would have with Aisha that evening, about how they would continue to teach their children about privilege and responsibility, about suffering and compassion. He thought about the foundation work they supported, and how he could do more. But mostly, he thought about the incredible gift of seeing the world through his child's eyes, eyes that still believed problems could be solved, that every person mattered, and that helping others was not just an option, but a responsibility. When they reached their front door, Canon looked up at his father one more time. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, son," Stephen replied, knowing that this simple walk had become one of the most important conversations of his life. "Thank you for reminding me what's really important." That night, as Stephen tucked Canon into his warm, safe bed, he silently promised to never lose sight of the lesson his son had taught him, that compassion should never become a casualty of comfort, and that the most profound questions often come from the purest hearts.